I've heard the narrative of roaming being bad in low elo because your ADC doesn't know how to play 1v2 or respect on your roam windows. I wanted to put this narrative to the test. If it's true, then this means that I will change my coaching and my advice to accommodate for low elo better. If it's false, then the low elo support community is probably going to have to do some reflecting, stop complaining, and just improve at their roams. In order to put this narrative to the test as thoroughly as possible, I played on a genuine bronze account. It had around high bronze, low silver MMR to experience games firsthand, so I'm not speaking from a distance. And I really wanted to try and isolate the roaming part of this narrative as much as possible, so I chose to play as Alistair, as he is one of the easiest to execute champions who enjoys roaming. I also found some examples of low elo supports roaming and analyzed how they performed. So for my hypothesis, I've coached many low elo players, even iron, rank, and true beginners throughout my coaching career. A lot of time with the lower elo player base I spend on laning phase and really developing those fundamentals as solidly as possible and putting a big focus on the 2v2 for the sake of simplicity. This doesn't mean that I don't think roaming is important, but it's not the number one priority. When my students do develop a relatively solid foundation, and then they progress onto roaming and even into the mid to late game, I've never felt the need to discourage roams in low elo versus high elo. However, I did lack any feel for genuine low elo games, and I tried to approach this topic with an open mind as possible, and maybe my experience in low elo games will change my mind. Now, before we start looking at the evidence that I collected in my and other low elo games, I wanted to give a quick description of the roaming fundamentals, because it is important to understand what a good roam looks like on paper. For a more in-depth explanation of these roaming fundamentals, I'm going to link my How to Roam Effectively video in the description below, but otherwise, a quick summation. You want to stay in fog as much as possible so that you can deny the enemy team information of your whereabouts. The gig is up. This is a concept that if you have shown, then you want to act as though the gig is up and you shouldn't expect to achieve anything on that window. Bot wave state, so you don't want to just roam whenever you feel like it. It's much better if you get to crash a wave into the enemy tower and then roam. Is the enemy actually out of position, or are they likely to be out of position soon? Does this roam make sense for your champion's identity? And the last point, communicating clearly and in advance. You want to make it clear what your intentions are. Ping on the way towards your roaming location. Back ping your ADC. Okay, so let's look at the first example. This is from my perspective as the Alistair, and my ADC has been chunked out pretty heavily. Realistically, I'm not going to find that nice and juicy crash into base, because ideally if we can get the wave into their tower, like I was saying before, it pushes back, my ADC is safe to collect minions. That's not going to happen, but I'm still going to take a base. I don't want to just hang around here and do nothing, and then I'm going to look to roam from base. So I'm roaming from base, they're kind of hanging around, they're going to get a bot plate, it is what it is. I'm going to set my eyes on the mid lane. Now there is a bigger argument to roam towards this mid lane because it's, two melee champions, assassin versus assassin volatility. Even if it wasn't, I would probably still look for a gank here, but it's worth mentioning. And on my roam here, I'm not confident that there is no enemy vision here because I haven't been here yet, so I'm going to use this plant first to create some fog, so that the next time I am around the middle of the map, then I can have a successful roam from fog. So I'm going to walk forward, I'm going to try to clear this ward. Now Diana shows on my map, so now I am in kind of disengaged mode, right? I don't want to fight her, I don't want to fight 2v2, I'm just a support. So I can't clear this ward, that's fine. I'm just going to look to proc my phase rush, combo onto the Yasuo, get my auto attack, and then just kind of get out of there. So I was trying to be a fog warrior, I was trying to generate some fog, I was assessing whether the enemy was out of position or not. As soon as Diana showed, no one was out of position. And so now the gig is up, right? Job is done, can't do anything. So I'm just going to move back down towards bot and then look to generate another roam window. And now that I know that there is a ward in there, I can at least play around this area a little bit better. However, what I notice is that the Yasuo is kind of hanging around and still being very aggressive. And so now I have an inkling that he might be out of position. And if I can wrap around where I know that it is very unlikely to have any wards and then find that gank, then it's quite likely to be successful. So I'm staying in fog, I'm not just kind of running straight up the middle of the lane and giving my whereabouts the whole time, trying to stay in fog. And we jump on the Yasuo, we get a kill here, and this is going to lead me to my first kind of counterpoint to ADCs being quote-unquote bad at dealing with you roaming as a support. Guess who else is bad with dealing with you roaming as a support? The enemy team. The mid laners have no idea how to play around a support roaming. They don't know how to lean, they don't know how to ward appropriately, they don't know how to survive ganks. And the enemy support doesn't know how to punish you roaming. They don't know how to decisively stack a bot wave and dive your ADC. Oftentimes they just start floating towards the action where you're ganking and roaming, and then they're there too late and they don't have anything to do. And we're going to see plenty of examples of that. Now, from my ADC's perspective, during this window, did he fail to play the 1v2 appropriately? Absolutely he did. I was very clear about my intentions to roam, as we can see my pings over here, and then he just runs in and takes a bunch of damage 1v2. It is what it is. This is going to happen at low elo. This is going to happen at high elo. It's probably going to happen more at low elo, but the whole point is everyone in low elo is typically playing at a low elo level. Of course, that's why they're in that rank. So anyway, let's wait for the dust to settle now. We got the kill on the Yasuo. Anyway, I'm going to clear this ward, and then I'm going to shift down towards bot. And then, like I said, the enemy team, they don't know how to react with an Alistair in Fog. There's a little bit less object permanence in lower elos, I would say. If I'm not showing on the map, then I don't exist to the enemy mid, to the enemy bot. And so now I'm just going to be posturing for an opportunity to potentially gank my own lane. If they get too confident by pushing up over here and trying to dive my ADC or trying to get plates, then I can gank my own lane from Fog. And that's what I'm on the lookout for. So he does overcommit, and then I'm able to just kind of run forwards, hex flash over the wall, and we're going to collect a couple kills here. Did they mess up? Absolutely, but, you know, we're in a low elo game for a reason. And now I'm going to shove this wave, and then I have a good wave state from base, and then it's just going to be rinse repeat. I'm going to move out onto the map and find a roam. So a lot about being a successful Fog warrior, embracing the Fog, and utilizing it to its maximum potential is to be able to pressure both lanes. If someone is out of position mid, you move to kill them. If someone is out of position bot, you move to kill them. Okay, let's look at the next example for this game, and again, we're going to find a crash into a base, great timer for a roam, and then I'm going to be pathing out of base and looking for potential areas to roam and impact. I see that my jungle is not active on the map anymore. She's just going to be passively farming her bot side camps, so that's fine. I'm kind of just posturing around mid to see if there's going to be a trade or anything, and of course staying in Fog on this window. I actually noticed that there's been a bit of heavy trading top. We can see that my Yone is quite healthy, the Urgot is not very healthy, and so I'm just going to sprint towards top. I have my Moby boots. Again, this is a bit risky of a play. I want to see how my ADC reacts to the situation. It would be better if my jungle was active on top side, then we can counter jungle and get a really easy dive off. But anyway, let's see what a higher variance roam can look like. I'm going to be pinging on the way top. I'm going to be preparing to dive Urgot, potentially on the next wave, with my mid laner, who is of course also moving up with me. And then I notice Diana. So then it's once again assessing that no one is out of position. This is a little bit unfortunate that she's here right as I'm hex flashing over to try and punish the Urgot, but I don't panic and use all of my cooldowns on Diana. And my top laner dies as well, so then absolutely no one is out of position right now. And so the gig is up, and then I'm happy to kind of call this play and then move back towards mid or move back towards bot or whatever I would need to do. However, Diana just keeps running forwards blindly, and so at some stage she is going to be out of position. I decide that now she is out of position. Then I jump on her with my Katarina. Executing is pretty simple from there on out. We get a kill onto the Diana, and now I'm just going to really still push the waters. Maybe we can still dive the Urgot. Still seeing how my ADC is going to react to all of this. And that play kind of fails, so it is what it is. I'm going to start to channel my base to go back towards bot. But I decide that, you know what, I'm going to be heading level 6. The Urgot is low. I can get my Katarina a kill. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to dive, invest my flash, invest my ult. Worst case, 1 for 1 is going to be worth. Best case, 1 for 0. Great. And so what has happened through all of this is that my ADC is going to be slightly behind in terms of, he should be a little bit more behind in terms of farm. he's going to be behind in terms of, the tower plates here. But I have killed their mid laner, I've killed their jungler, I've killed their top laner. I have successfully created win conditions on the side of the map so that even if my ADC was inting really badly, then I've created enough win conditions to be able to carry an underperforming ADC anyway. And this was with me tunneling on roaming a little bit too much and making some poor roaming decisions for the sake of content. Okay, moving on to the next game, we have a good wave state bot. I am piling out of base, and I'm going to consider ganking mid. Staying in fog, not just kind of beelining it up mid, of course. I notice some volatility over here. I'm going to consider if he's out of position or not. So I'm going to channel my Hex Flash, and then I decide, actually, he's not out of position. I would not want to, show my hand right now. My Lysandra is in no position to follow up. She just eat away. So remaining in fog, denying the enemy team information. But I'm going to hang around. I notice that he's hitting the wave, right? He's probably going to want to try and crash the wave and then do something, roam or base or whatever it may be. So I'm going to be posturing in fog. As you can see, I'm in fog this whole time. And then he flashes forwards. He doesn't know how to play around fog. He is making low elo level decisions, and we are going to punish accordingly. So now he's just completely dead because he just flashes forward. Obviously executing as Alistair on these roams is incredibly simple. And then I'm just going to help my mid laner to crash this wave so that she can get a shove into base and heal up. And then let's have a quick look at the minimap. Let's notice what Zyra ends up doing. So she's kind of bot, and then a bunch of this stuff goes on, and then she just kind of like starts hovering towards the action, and she doesn't really know what to do. Should she help out over here? It's too late. Should she try and do something here? But they don't have dive threat on my Caitlyn, and she walks over vision. And so this is what I mean, that everyone doesn't know how to do good League of Legends things in low elo, not just your ADC. Let's keep going. Shove this wave, and then I'm going to look to meet back up towards my ADC. But then Zyra is just kind of doing nothing, trying to disrupt me, and then it turns out that Samira is here as well, so I'm just going to walk away. I don't care about this at all. They're just wasting time. So eventually I'm going to find a safer passage through towards the bottom side of the map, but then again, she is showing herself, she is donating us any information to work with, and so I'm going to say, okay, you know what? Maybe we can fight them in the river here. Hitting Dragon early on is a huge investment of tempo, of cooldowns, of health, and so I'm going to look to punish. And now what I'm going to do, and what she has failed to do, is I'm going to stay in fog. I'm going to make sure I'm in fog here. I'm sweeping this bush, and then I'm going to wait. Right now she's not out of position. But when my jungle on the minimap here, when she groups up with me, then she is going to be out of position, and then I am going to pull the trigger. If I comboed right now, then the whole play would be done. I might die. It would go a lot worse. But now here's my jungle. Channel Hex Flash. Really simple to execute there, just roaming fundamentals. Okay, let's jump forwards, and now I'm piling out of base, and I'm going to be looking to roam towards mid once again, and we'll see how mid reacts, we'll see how bot reacts. So what happens here is I notice that the Twitch is just kind of all-inning my Lysandra, so I was going to do something like this and then wrap around and gank him, but there's just a lot of volatility here right now, so if he tries to commit too hard, then I'm going to be ready to just kind of jump on him. And that's exactly what he does. He commits too hard, he doesn't kite backwards because he's in this elo for a reason. We get a free kill there. Meanwhile, my ADC seems more than capable of just not dying, just right-clicking on a few minions, and they don't know how to punish appropriately, these players over here. We'll speed this up a little bit and have a look at another example. But here, just an example of me kind of ganking my own lane again, really being a Fog Warrior to its maximal potential. She kind of freaks out. I find a bunch of damage in the 2v2 as well, and then I'm just going to exit. Turns out they're playing pretty respectfully, so what I'm going to do is just kind of peel away from bot side. They know my jungle's here. The gig is up around this window, so I'm going to move towards mid. Once again, just have a look at the state of this map. They have absolutely no idea where I am, and so I'm just going to carry the entire early game with this. I'm going to be creatively looking to Hex Flash and then combo the Twitch from over the wall here. I'm going to wait until I am satisfied that he is out of position, and now I decide that he's out of position. His body language, he's running forwards. Now I just got to press a couple buttons and he's going to die. Quite clearly, mid laners are going to struggle dealing with solid roam fundamentals in lower elo. I haven't been bringing it up too much, but I have been communicating a lot. As you can see, this is all just me pinging on the way towards mid, or pinging people's head who I want to fight, or back pinging my ADC as well when I'm roaming. So what I did next is I went down a low elo support rabbit hole. I would have a look at one low elo support, I click on their profile, see what champs they're playing, see what supports they verse, until eventually I found some roaming supports that are being played in low elo. And so what I want to do is just focus on the minimap for this one. And it was such a struggle to find a single replay from any low elo player where they actually leave the lane. It's crazy. I looked at dozens of replays from different players, different champions, and no one ever left their lane, except for a few examples, which we will have a look at afterwards. But it's a shame. These engagers and playmakers, they have so much threat when they can use the fog of war, when they can roam around and skirmish, and if you just brute force bot 24/7, you're missing out on so much potential of these champions. Eventually, I found a support in silver who actually left lane. It may start to come as no surprise by now, but it didn't look good, so we're going to have a look at how they executed on their roam. Okay, so from the perspective of the bard here, eventually he is going to move off into fog. He's going to be moving with his jungle, which is a great idea if you can link up with your jungle. But then there's already going to be some execution. This portal is horrible. You would want to kind of portal straight through this wall to be a bit faster. Or we can be assessing what's going on here and consider portaling through here to have a little bit more of an aggressive approach to whatever is unfolding around mid. So poor portal, and then he just walks straight through this area here, which of course he has to once he messed up his portal. But cardinal sin, right? You're showing on your roam window, so your roam is going to be much less impactful. But in low elo, sometimes even if you do show, people forget once you are off their minimap anyway, so maybe it can still kind of work, linking up with jungle. But there's not too much to do, right? Their mid laner just died. We saw, the enemy mid and jungle just kind of go off map. So there's nothing happening here right now. Bit of time wasted there, and then we're going to be moving down towards bot. So this is a good idea to be, in fog and ganking your own lane, like we said. But then we just kind of fail to execute again. We do an awful portal over here, and we do find a Q stun eventually, but then we just kind of stand still and tank a bunch of towers. And then it just doesn't look too good, right? So the roaming fundamentals weren't the best, the execution wasn't the best, and so that's why plays like this fail. Now make no mistake, you will get those occasional players. We can use like a typical Draven player with weak mental who is just going to fight non-stop, whether it's 2v2 or 1v2, and just kind of run it down. That happens in low elo, that happens in high elo. And I'm not saying you can't adapt in the moment. If you realize that your ADC is doing something like that and they're not responding to your clear and concise and in advance communication, you can make decisions from there. But remember, you are versing low elo opponents and they don't know how to punish appropriately. And even in my high elo games, I roam a lot. I get ADCs that run it down. I make mid laners sell their items and buy new ones out of frustration and tilt. Now let's quickly compare that low elo bard roam to a high elo bard roam. This is when I am playing on my main here in EU West in high elo. And I am going to be making sure that I am in fog. I'm going to sweep out the enemy vision. I'm going to be a fog warrior, really embrace the fog, make sure that there is no vision for the enemy team. I'm going to shift down here, clear out this ward as well. And now we can kind of see that the entire bot side of the map is dark. So I have options to pounce on bot, to pounce on mid. And then whatever opportunity presents itself, I will be ready to execute. Posturing in fog. And then I'm going to move towards Jace because I think that he might be out of position soon. I'm going to try to stay in fog. As you can see here, I am hugging the wall so that this does not see me. And he is a high elo player, right? So he understands the threat of all of this fog and he is backing off. Fair play to him. I won't commit if he's not out of position. So I'm just going to move forward and clear this instead. Move back towards bot side. And it's just incredibly suffocating for the enemy team to try to deal with this because both of their mid and bot lanes just kind of have to sit back and do nothing, which is just not going to happen. And even if it does, you're going to be slowly bleeding. So then they're just kind of all in, and now this is a similar situation to the low elo game, right? You just have to execute. And so I'm going to land my stun. I'm going to find an ult on the enemy ADC. I'm going to dodge a skill shot. I'm going to portal through. I decide that Ezreal is most likely going to die, so I'm going to portal through and focus on killing the Nico as well. I find a stun on her, and this is just the difference, right? There is the macro, there is the roaming fundamentals, and then there's the micro, there's the execution. Okay, moving on. This is one of the examples of me diving into the low elo support rabbit hole. I found a Maokai player. I found a situation where he actually left bot lane, which is not easy to find. And let's have a look at his decisions. Let's see if he stays in fog. Let's see if he assesses whether enemies are out of position or not. We can see he is sprinting towards topside right now. So already this is a little bit of a question mark because your jungle is not active on the map. So you want to be a bit careful about how much you move forwards on the map here. No one is out of position. Top Ari is going to be tough to be out of position. We could kind of hover here and we should be taking Hex Slash, and then maybe we can find a Hex Slash into W. But otherwise, we're getting way too confident around top river when our jungle is nowhere near. And then we show. Boom. Cardinal sin. Now the enemy team has perfect information to work with. Your ADC could get punished. You could die. And then we're still kind of hanging around. We're not acknowledging that the gig is up. And then we're going to kind of posture, and then we're going to just use our cooldowns on the Vi already. Have a think about the difference between Maokai using his cooldowns like this and no one being able to follow up versus when I was the Alistair, I was sitting over here, the Zyre was down here, and I waited, and then I Hex Slash comboed, and then it was really clean. I also asked my students in lower elos if they bought into this narrative to show me some examples. The consensus was that people did believe this narrative, but I only got sent a couple of replays. So this is going to be one of them. We are from the perspective of the Seraphine here. Now, my student was mature enough to have a bit of curiosity about the situation. He didn't immediately decide that all of his team was bad. But let's have a look at what happens. So first of all, we're going to be moving towards our jungle over here. We have pretty low health. We have very low mana. Seraphine is not a champion that wants to roam too much in the early game. She really thrives at winning 2v2 and slowly bleeding the enemy out in more of a war of attrition. Of course, that doesn't mean you can never roam, but it's just going to be harder for you to impact other lanes. And so we're going to start moving towards the action over here. First of all, let's ask if anyone is out of position, and especially kind of what's happening with the fight. Because the fight is kind of happening around here. If it was happening closer to the bottom lane, and if it was kind of moving towards us, then that is a fight that we can definitely kind of help out in. And then we also want to have an idea of what's going on. Is it going to be likely that our move here is going to achieve anything? So we're moving up, and it's just exiting away, right? So we're going to be investing so much time into this move with very little chance of anything being achieved. And all the meanwhile, we could be stacking a bot wave or crashing a bot wave, spending our gold, coming back to lane, full health, full mana, gold spent, and really dominating the 2v2. Now, once the dust has settled and no one is out of position, let's embrace reality. The gig is up. Nothing is going to happen over here. But now we are showing on the map, and that is going to make our pressure on the map. It's going to make the enemy's decisions much easier for them to do. What we potentially could have done on this window is, like I said, the gig is up, sprint back towards bot, crash wave, go home, come back out. Or what we could do is we could remain in fog and then just have a look. See if Silas is going to try and crash the wave into our tower or not. And then if he does, then he's going to be up here. And then we can collapse like that, or we can collapse like that, and then that's going to be a very high chance of working out. I want to quickly clarify a few points. So I don't want to rank shame. I don't want to demean. I hope it's not coming off like that. But I want to shine a light and uncover the truth of the matter, of what is really going on with roams in high elo versus low elo. It is fine if you are bad at roaming. It is fine if you are at a lower elo. But what I'm not okay with, harboring deluded narratives. That's going to make you more frustrated with results. That's going to make you have less fun with the game. That's going to make you have worse results in the games. And overall, it's just not going to be benefiting anyone. So let me run through some of my observations overall. I, of course, did much more testing and researching than I included in the clips in here, but it all followed the same patterns that we have described today. ADCs looked more than competent to chill 1v2, and not in just for, a little bit of a time frame. and I looked at dozens of games. All I saw was poor roaming fundamentals and just low elo level gameplay across the board. Again, I'm not rank shaming, but this is just the reality. Your decisions, your habits, your gameplay, your mentality will be reflected in your rank with amazing accuracy in the long run. I did observe some differences between high elo and low elo, so let's give the devil its due and talk about these differences. First of all, diving. This is an inherently high risk, high reward that requires mechanical execution, which is not something that you want to opt into too much in lower elos. And I also found that Baron is quite a risky call as well. People struggled to come together and all hit Baron together, or make that tricky decision between finishing Baron or turning off of Baron to find a fight. And people also just kind of love basing randomly. People aren't competent at closing out games in lower elos. And so naturally, the difficulty that low elo experiences to close out games is going to mean that games get drawn out longer. And that is going to make picks champions that scale a better decision objectively. That doesn't mean that you can't climb with engagers or with playmakers or with whatever champion you enjoy, but there is going to be a bit of a difference in meta between low elo and high elo. What is also going to help is playing easy to execute champions, reducing those variables and keeping it as simple as possible so that you can do the right things as consistently as you can and not get overwhelmed with everything to think about that goes on in League. I want to share some theories on why I found the results that I did, and maybe you can help me in the comments down below with your experiences and observations. I'm just going to be spitballing here. But I find that low elo supports, they struggle with pressuring in fog, remaining in fog, utilizing fog to its maximum potential, and pouncing on someone being out of position, identifying whether they are or are not out of position. It seems like they may deal in binary to simplify situations. Either you're going to be perma-roaming, or you're going to be perma-sitting bots. It's going to be much easier to approach League like that, but unfortunately, you need to be thinking and adapting in the moment to get the most out of this game. And choosing the perma-bot decision, which looks incredibly common for low elo, is quite silly if you're playing engagers, if you're playing playmakers. You have so many tools and strengths to be able to skirmish and roam. I also find that they don't communicate clearly and in advance. They have poor roam fundamentals, which we have discussed. They fail to create meaningful win conditions away from their ADC. So they leave their ADC, they show on the map, they don't achieve anything, their ADC falls behind, and then they have nothing to show for it. There also may be a potential failure to use the mute all function. They may be scared of pissing off their teammates, so they always take the safe decision, which is just going to be to sit bot and not really do anything. There's also just going to be wasted time before, during, and after ganks. And the last one is maybe people focus on the bad times. It goes poorly once or twice, and then there's just no curiosity as to why it happened and how to improve on it. There may just be emotional scarring and lack of courage to do it again and actually improve at the skill. So in conclusion, roaming isn't high variance in low elo versus high elo, it's just good League of Legends. You're most likely roaming at a silver level if you believe otherwise. I'm not saying it's easy to roam at a high elo at a challenger level, but I also wasn't doing anything crazy, just the right things well consistently. What is actually really hard is understanding how every champion in the game wants to fight and how all of their abilities are used and how champions interact with each other. And also assessing whether someone is out of position or not. That is in the roaming fundamentals, but that is going to take a while for you to develop competence at. That is a multi-level analysis that you need to make quickly as well. Otherwise, I'm going to call this support myth debunked. If you want to actually improve at your roaming, download your VODs, review your games, work through the roaming fundamentals one by one, toggle enemy vision to see if you are in fog or not, and then you will start to find more success. Thank you for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting, as this really does help my channel grow. To level up your gameplay and mentality, visit my website schoolofsupport.gg. The link is going to be down in the description below.